Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA Edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're getting ready to go over this nice DraftKings main slate. I believe it's only 5 games. Nice palatable slate, and hopefully we can help you out and
So palatable.
so palatable. Yeah, hopefully we can help you cash and or get a takedown. Taylor and I had quite a bit of success yesterday, and hopefully we can keep that going and also help everybody who's watching. If you do watch, this is free content coming your way. So if it helps you out in any way and you enjoy the content, help us out too by liking this video and also subscribing to the channel. Both those things help us out quite a bit. Even leaving a comment too on the video, it just helps with with the engagement, and YouTube just starts realizing that, hey, people like this stuff. So it's good. And then also we have our Discord. You can check that out via the link on our page or on the video here. I'll drop it too. Come on in and chat with us as we go into lock, and we'll issue also finalized core plays and help you and answer any questions that you have. We're just there to help you win. So, all right, let's get to it. Big part of that is obviously this video breakdowns. We go position by position, highlighting the best plays of the day, factoring in ownership, matchup, and projections. So SGA leads the way with a 58-point fantasy projection at point guard. Obviously, just raw points perspective, he is the best play, I think, of the entire slate. And at the position, the only problem is he's 10.5K, not 10.5. And he's facing the Cavs, which is it's a good game environment in theory because of the total. These are two very good teams, but it is not an ideal defensive matchup, really. So why don't we touch on there first? Because a lot of these other plays are popping and they look a little bit more obvious. Do you have interest in SGA right now with 21% ownership?
Yeah, I could see him being lower owned than that. I just feel like point guard is once again loaded. Like there are tons of expensive plays. There's good value there. I think the Suns stars are going to be the chalky spends, and I don't really know if people are just going to want to pay 10.5 for SGA against Cleveland, but he does get a boost. Like he already gets a boost without Chet, and now Hartenstein's out. He's going to get another boost. He's up to like 1.63 points per minute with both off the floor. Cleveland plays fast. Should be ample opportunity in this game. Should be close, I would think. I love SGA. I think he might be one of the more under-owned elite plays on the slate. I know it's a shorter slate, 5 games than we've had for like the last couple of weeks, but even so, I could see him going a little overlooked depending on what else happens as far as news on the slate. But I think he's awesome. I'm happy to play the Phoenix guys, but I think you can still afford to play, either KD or Booker and still afford SGA.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it has to be a direct pivot. I mean, there's a 1.4K difference in price, so like you don't have to do that. You can certainly pair them together. Devin or KD feel quite necessary on the slate. It's up to you which one you like. I prefer Devin. The Wizards are very, very bad in general, but they're also specifically bad at stopping the outside shot. Obviously, KD can do that too, and he certainly could rack up rebounds on this defense. But I just think Devin, he does project a little bit more. He actually is the lower owned of the two, at least last time I checked. So if that is the case, I'm going Booker all day. You can pair them together. They both project amazingly. The matchup with the Wizards is as good as it gets. And if the game stays close, I mean, forget about it, right? So this does feel like a little bit of like a don't get too cute situation. Like Devin Booker just looks like a smash. He is the best point guard on the slate. But if you're right and SGA is going to be unowned, and same thing, we'll throw Cade Cunningham in that mix.
He'll be unowned. I think he'll be lower owned than the Suns.
Yeah, not unowned. But if he's like at 20% and Devin Booker's pushing 30%, that is interesting for sure. So I'm never going to tell you not to play SGA or Cade or that they're bad plays, because they're not bad plays. They both project really well. SGA has the best projection of the position. So I do like them. I just like Devin Booker considerably more. And you mentioned other options at point guard, and boy, that's very true. James Harden coming in with the 4th best projection, not very far off of these guys because there's no Kawhi Leonard. So against the Blazers, who do not offer much resistance, Harden looks great. It looks like he's going to be a little bit overlooked here compared to Devin Booker. And if the ownership ticks up on, SGA and Cade, maybe Harden keeps getting overlooked even more. So he looks really good. Halliburton, if he's in against the Pistons, I don't hate that at 8.4K. And Fox at 8.5K. Malik Monk is probable to return, but Fox is still a really nice price and does not project for any ownership at all, really, relative to the slate. So, or relative to these other top options. So why don't you just give your thoughts on, those kind of like higher mid-range guys in the 8K range, and whether or not you want to go to them instead of, the really expensive guys or some of the chalky guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason guys like SGA just aren't going to be like mega popular, is because we do have so many other options. I think Halliburton, if he's in, he has a groin injury that cost him the last game, and he left the game before that early. So I hope he's not limited if he's in, but I guess we could potentially hear about a limit if they do limit him. But without Mathurin, who's suspended, Halliburton, Turner, and Siakam all get pretty sizable boosts. Halliburton is at like 1.43 points per minute without Mathurin over the last 2 years. This year it's at 1.27. I think he's going to be underprojected by most people based on this season's numbers being a little bit lower than they have been over the last 2 combined, but decent enough spot. The Pistons are improved, but Halliburton should get a boost if he's in without Mathurin. So I do like him quite a bit for the price. I love Harden. I'm over the field on Harden at 9-1 without Kawhi Leonard against Portland, who's an exploitable matchup. Clippers on a back-to-back, but they won by like 60 last night, so they didn't really have to go too hard. Cade is someone I'm pretty under on. Like, I just much prefer SGA in that range, but Cade's always playable without Ivy. Like, we've seen the upside with him pretty consistently. Fox, I'm not really on. I don't love the matchup against Houston. Generally don't love to target guys playing the Rockets, but he's fine. With Monk back, though, he does get a dock a little bit. So not someone I'm super interested in today. That could burn me, but I'm happy to be under the field on him right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think like in tournaments, because of the ownership, you can look at Hallie and Fox, but they're just not really on my radar. I think the studs up top, if they're going to be pretty low owned, they're interesting. And you have Devin and Harden, who feel like pretty equal plays. And the ownership is going to be a little bit split up top. So you can get different and save some money by going down to Fox or Halliburton, but I just don't think they're near as good a plays as these other guys. So I'm starting with Devin and I'm going to Harden. Like, I honestly am kind of just really okay with fading Cade and SGA. I don't really think that doing that is going to hurt me because I get a really balanced lineup. The only issue, if you do that, you're going to want to make sure that you're not just eating into all the chalky guys. Because, by the way, all the chalky guys look fucking amazing. One of them is Shadon Sharp, who projects extremely well for a 6.2 K price tag. No Denny Avdia. So all the Blazers look good. Like you were saying off the show here, they all are going to pop. Scoot, Simons, even like Simons is honestly a little bit interesting to me. If all the ownership is going to go to Sharp, I think Simons is a very interesting tournament play. I think nobody's going to be looking at him. He was just absolute dog shit last game. I experienced that. It kept me from cashing in one of those lineups I had. He got 11. Okay, so nobody wants to play Simon. Scoot and Sharp just both look better for sure. So if you're looking at like from a core play perspective or trying to build out foundation, they are better plays. But Simons is an interesting GPP play for sure, in my opinion. If you want to, Jordan Poole stands out a little bit. If you want to like think about game stacking, like if you're going to play both KD and Devin, certainly makes sense to get a run back for the Wiz potentially. I think Poole just has a really nice ceiling, so he's still in play. Yeah, I already touched on Scoot, Simons. I think, Tyus Jones is an okay value at 4.3. Bradley Beal's out, so a lot of guys are going to get a little bit of a bump. Obviously, Tyus Jones' minutes are going to be a little bit more solidified. Grayson Allen off the bench, we'll talk about him. So that isn't the worst thing. Kason Wallace is a value at 4.2K. TJ McConnell once again, and then Andrew Nemhard. Is he? Yeah, he's right there. If Hallie is out, both those guys once again look good. One guy I do want to point out, I was on him kind of jokingly in the last time we talked about Donovan Mitchell. I don't want Donovan Mitchell on the slate. The OKC is a very bad matchup. He got 25 fantasy points the last time he faced them. Obviously, he's capable of making me look stupid and nuking the slate like he kind of did the other day. But I do not want Donovan Mitchell. There's too many other good plays here.
Yeah, you kind of said a lot there, so I don't really know where to pick up. But I do think Tyus Jones is a good value. Like, the minutes have been really bad for him, but without Beal, they should be a little bit safer. Beal's been playing off the bench, kind of closing over Tyus Jones, but that shouldn't be a concern tonight. Revenge game for Tyus Jones also, if you're into that. I do think Scoot is easily the best play of that Portland trio. I'm assuming he's going to start again with Denny and Grant out. And when he starts, he's playing point guard, and that pushes Simons to an off-ball role. That pushes Sharp to the 3. I think Sharp is probably overprojected by most people on this slate. He's quite scoring dependent for the most part. So if his shots aren't falling, he's really not going to show a lot of upside and doesn't have a very high floor. I think he's a little bit overowned as of now. Simons is kind of whatever. Like, I'm just kind of taking a pro Scoot stance as the cheapest one of that 3. not going to shoot 8 for 10 from 3-point range again. Not expecting 39 real points on like 15 shots or whatever it was, but good value, good role. They're going to get him all the minutes they can. Even in a blowout, I think Scoot should be fairly secure. So not really into Simons or Sharp quite as much. I think Scoot's an excellent play once again. And then, in addition to Tyus Jones, you have Chris Dunn with Terrence Mann and Kawhi Leonard out at 3-4. Should play a decent role and a good spot against Portland. And then Delano Banton, another Blazer, point guard, shooting guard, 3K flat. May not play more than 20 minutes off the bench, but he's a super good per minute producer, kind of like Jared Butler type guy. So Banton's playable on this slate at minimum price.
Yeah, 3K Banton. 19 minutes last game with no Denny, so that is definitely a really nice call. Don't know if we absolutely need to do that, but in the realm of that 3.2K range, Jalen Williams is going to be very, very popular at 3.3, and there's also Jerry Swalker at 3.2. Like, if people are going there, Banton is not that bad of a play at 3K. I like that call for sure. All right, over at shooting guard we go. Devin Booker leads the way over there. There's a bit of a drop off after him, but Amen Thompson and Jalen Green continue to look really, really good. I prefer Jalen Green of those two. You have Shaedon Sharp here at shooting guard as well. That's like the 4-pack of where I would start here. I do like Norm Powell at 7.3. Not as much of a priority. I'd rather play Jalen Green there. Nembhard, Grayson Allen we talked about. Why don't you elaborate on Grayson Allen, though, because he's only 4.2K. And he's popping and looking pretty chalky.
Yeah, no Beal should make him fairly secure. They also traded Josh Okogie yesterday to Charlotte, so that's another potential wing not available to play. So Allen should have a pretty safe role. It's the fucking Wizards, so we're playing anyone against the Wizards. He's 4-2 with guard forward, so you could play him in 5 spots. Just a very strong value, and I think someone you're probably going to want to have. The favorite play, though, here is once again Jalen Green. Like, he's going to go overlooked. His ownership looks really low. His price is coming up, but without Jabari Smith and Tari Eason, his usage goes way up. Replacing Jabari with Amen Thompson in the starting lineup has kind of unlocked the Rockets' offense in general. Clears more space for these guys. Jalen Green has more ball handling duties without Jabari kind of floating around the perimeter. So he's going to go under-owned again. One of these days, he's probably going to have a poor shooting game and it's going to burn us. But as long as the ownership's low and he's still underpriced for this role, I'm just going to keep playing him and keep printing money off of him. So I'm fine with that. Nembhard's going to be probably a core play again if Halliburton's out, but still okay if he's in without Mathurin. Amen Thompson, fine. Lou Dort, okay value. If he's going to be super chalky, I don't want Lou Dort against the Cavaliers, but Hartenstein being out boosts him a little bit. Otherwise, it's Booker, Allen, and Green. That's kind of the headlining stuff at shooting guard.
Yeah, and just to double down on that, Amen and Jalen Green, the ownership is so low. Like, you can definitely, you can make a very strong argument to fade Sharp in favor of Jalen Green because he's 1.2K more expensive. Sharp's already carrying like a ton of ownership projected anyways. So if everybody's going to be on Sharp, who, like you said, is pretty scoring dependent, and he doesn't hit, unowned Jalen Green here for like the 4th or 5th slate in a row is going to carry us to glory. And Amen's really interesting too, because in that same price range are guys like Evan Mobley, Jalen Williams, who I don't really want to fade Jalen Williams, but if you don't want to play Evan Mobley and guys like that in that 8K range, De'Aaron Fox, Halliburton, instead of those guys, Amen Thompson also is going to be unowned, and he just feels a little bit more appealing to me. See, value. I already touched on Case on Wallace. He's an okay punt at 4.2. Bob Carrington at 4.4. He's okay. I think these guys are like in play. Malik Beasley at 5.6. Don't think he's necessary, but he's there. He's got a little bit of a role with no Jaden Ivey. Not the worst thing. All right. I think that does it for
Powell. Without Kawhi against Portland, it's a pretty strong play again.
Yeah, well, we can touch on him here, too, because he's available at small forward. He's not that far behind the top projecting small forward, which is Amen Thompson, about 6 fantasy points behind him. He is going to carry ownership in a game that does have I think, either the number one or, no, it's probably the second biggest spread of the slate. So there is blowout risk here against the bad Blazers team. But I don't know. I like Norm here. He projects well, second best projecting small forward on the slate. And then one guy I really like is Tumani Kamara. With Noah Denny, he was awesome. Last 2 games, he played 38 and 39 minutes. He popped off last game for over 40 fantasy points. Not a good matchup against Clippers, but he projects just fine enough, and he's not carrying ownership, which is really interesting. I think he's a more interesting play than somebody like Shadon Sharp. And by the way, I don't know if I said it, but I agree with you. I prefer Scoot of all the Blazers guards. I mean, when you look at price, you look at the projection and the ownership, I just think he is a more appealing play. All right, so it gets ugly in a hurry here. So beyond Norman Amen, who are you looking at here, if anybody?
Yeah, this is easily the worst position on the slate, so pick down the way to go. Both Thompson twins are fine. Like Asar is obviously way cheaper than Amen, but if Asar starts again, he's always fine. He can stuff the stat sheet similar to his twin, so I think he's okay. Really like Cam Moore a bit. 3 in the minutes are not amazing, but he's super good per minute. If the game blows out like last night, he can benefit from blowout, as we saw. Just 3-7 is not a lot to pay, and this position is awful. So if you want to fully punt it with a guy like this that does have upside for a tournament, I think that's perfectly fine.
Look at that
same vein as
usage.
Kamara.
2 games ago, 40%.
In the same vein as Toumani Camara, who I also love, he gets the biggest usage boost without Avdia and without Jeremy Grant. So pretty strong play is Royce O'Neal, who could start in place of, I guess Bradley Beal hasn't been starting, so he probably won't start anyway, but I think he's okay enough at 4-5 against the Wizards. I do prefer Allen between the two because Allen is guard eligible, but O'Neal is okay. Dort, I mentioned, Derek Jones and Amir Coffey, maybe okay values with Kawhi and without Terrence Mann, but super low usage, not a ceiling. Those guys both are playable given the matchup, but hardly priorities. I think Grayson Allen, Kamara, O'Neal, and Whitmore are kind of where I'm living here at small forward.
Yeah, maybe even Ryan Dunn. I agree. Like all those guys are, I keep saying palatable, but you know they are definitely in play. Like I would keep them in your player pool because they're pretty good values, and I think all like the best plays are kind of like the same like across the board. Like you know it's pretty easy to spot those guys at this point. They're all projecting very very well. I think one of the key ways to get different on this slate is going to be in the value department. So especially if you enter a lot of lineups, differentiating which guys you know are rotating in with your core is going to be pretty important. Not that guys like Derek Jones Jr. aren't thin as shit. Like they're super thin. It's tough to trust them, but they're definitely in play. All right, over to power forward we go. Kevin Durant checks in as the best projecting power forward. He is way too cheap, especially for a matchup with the Wizards. Let's first just talk about whether you want to pair him with Booker. Obviously, you're going to like KD. He's got the best projection, and he's way too cheap. How are you feeling? Do you want KD or Booker? And what do you feel about pairing them together? Or how do you feel?
I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet. I think it's always slate dependent and price dependent and stuff with guys like this in the same matchup on the same team, obviously. So I think you can pair Booker and Durant together and be okay with it. It's a 5-game slate. They're playing the Wizards. We saw in the last game they're both capable of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is they're both going to be super chalky, and I feel like a lot of people are just going to blindly pair them. So I don't hate the idea of splitting them. I wouldn't play them in the same lineup as each other in every single one of your lineups you have, for example.
Right.
Splitting them up in half of your lineups, something like that is perfectly fine. I'm going to run lineups to see how it looks if I do split them and compare like the projection amount, things like that, and ownership, aggregate ownership. So if it's going to be a super chalky lineup with both of them in it, I'll probably split them up just to try and get different elsewhere. But obviously, there's strong plays. Durant projecting for more ownership because the forward spots in general are weaker than the guard spots on this slate. So I expect him to be the chalkier of the two. Both are going to be popular, though. Siakam is someone that I think is pretty underrated on this slate without Mathurin. He gets a huge boost. They're playing Detroit, so it's an OKNF spot. 7-2 is pretty light on DraftKings for Siakam. Hasn't shown a monster ceiling, but if Halliburton is also out, it's going to be pretty hard to get away from him. The best play at this position, though, overall is probably Jalen Williams.
You better believe it.
8K flat without Hartenstein and Chet. Cleveland, obviously not a good matchup, but the game should stay tight. Mentioned the game pace should suit OKC pretty well. Minute should be very secure for him. 8K flat's just a little bit cheap. So if the ownership's lighter on him than it will be on Durant and Siakam, which it certainly could be, I'm very happy to be over on J-Dub.
Yeah, I think you kind of said it perfectly. I think Jalen and Siakam are exactly why I'm very comfortable with fading or being very underweight on KD. First off, I just think Devin Booker, first of all, projects better. He's projecting for less ownership, and the matchup kind of favors Devin Booker's game. So not that it doesn't also favor, or it's not that KD can't also explode here. Another thing is, it's pretty likely that both of them approach 50 fantasy points, but it's not likely that they both go like nuclear. I just feel like Devin just offers the better ceiling. He just is the more aggressive scorer in general. So, like, if you had to guess between the two, who's more likely to score 40 real points? I think it's Devin Booker. So that's just where I'm leaning on a one versus one there. I don't hate pairing them, but it's just not what I'm going to be doing because Jalen Williams is so close to KD in projection, and you save 1.2K there. And then if you don't want to play Jalen Williams, that's fine. But then there's also Siakam if no Hallie. So those two look great. I have no problem with fading KD and playing both Jalen and Siakam if I can get there. Another reason why I think going balanced is just the right way to go on this slate. It gets ugly after that, man. Evan Mobley normally would be a pretty interesting play. His projection's not the best. Jalen and Siakam just look better. KD looks way better. You can play Evan Mobley just because the Thunder are down Hartenstein, so it's a little resistance that's not down there. So there's that. I don't think I'm going to do it though. I think Evan Mobley is not a optimal play on this slate. Kuzma is okay at 6.1 if you want to go down and save. Him and Tobias are just okay. I don't mind them, but I just feel like I'd rather go up to get Siakam and Jalen Williams. Keegan Murray forever plays all the minutes, so he's an interesting lower mid-range value at 5.1K. Like you said, Desire Thompson just does a lot of shit when he's out there. As long as he starts, he's in play. If he doesn't start, it's a big hell no. Cam Whitmore, 3.7K, one of the better value plays down here. And then we don't really know yet what's going to happen with the OKC bigs, but Kenrick Williams at 3.1K could be viable, even if he doesn't start. Like, obviously the OKC big who starts is going to be the one I want most of the shares of, right? But whoever doesn't start still could be rotated in and get 20 minutes here. So at 3.1K, I think Kenrick Williams is definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, I'm probably not. I'm undecided on if I'd play Kenrich and the other Jalen Williams together. They are both so cheap that I think it's okay. Like
don't get those Jalen Williams confused.
Yeah, the center Jalen with a Y Williams.
Yeah,
Kenrich could start. I don't think it's very likely given Cleveland's monster front court. I assume it will be Jalen Williams, but Kenrich is fine. He's 3-1. Like, it doesn't take a lot for him to get there at that salary. He's pretty good per minute also.
mm-hmm.
They're going to need him to play without both of their regular centers in there, so I think he's playable. I do prefer him to guys like Ryan Dunn and Derek Jones and stuff like that. I'm not really into Keegan Murray on this slate. It's kind of just J-Dub, KD, Pascal, and then Royce O'Neal, Cam Whitmore, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think you want to go up or down. Like, you want to go all the way down for some of these punts who are good per minute guys, or you want to go basically all the way up to these top three guys, in my opinion. That's where we should be. I really only mentioned Keegan because 5.1K for a guy who basically plays the whole game is definitely worth mentioning. All right, here we go. Center, last position. KD leads the way there. You do have Sabonis, who is certainly a very interesting GPP play. He's not going to garner much ownership at all. Third, the ownership right now of KD and only $600 more. It's not a great matchup. So there's that. And obviously KD is just the better play. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it in tournaments at all. I think Sabonis is certainly interesting. Şengün's okay. Certainly a good price at 8.9K. A really good projection too. Also not very owned. So there's that. But I would either be paying for KD here, or I'd be saving with Jalen Williams with a Y, or I'm getting Zubac at 7.1K. I think that's the best way to approach this slate. Doesn't mean you can't play those guys. Sabonis is fully capable of getting 70 fantasy points. That's just probably where I'm at. Are there any other mid-range guys that stand out to you? And how do you feel about the guys I already talked about?
Yeah, I think Miles Turner stands out a lot at 6K flat against Detroit without Mathurin, potentially without Halliburton. Gets another guy who gets a pretty big usage boost without Mathurin. Jalen Duren does not want to paint. Miles Turner doesn't want to enter the paint. So Miles Turner, I think, in this matchup could find himself wide open quite a bit from three-point range. And I think 6K flat is pretty light for him. He's been pretty underwhelming overall, but 3 minutes, 6K Miles Turner, I'm very interested in. I do like the Zubats call. I think you can play Ayton. if you have the balls to play DeAndre Ayton, there's no Donovan
can
Clingan.
you?
Clingan being out, I
Can
think
you?
maybe makes him a little bit safer. Robert Williams has not played much at all lately. I do think Ayton is a potential bounce back candidate, and he's cheap, so I don't mind that. Şengün has eaten Sabonis' lunch over the years. I'm happy to play Şengün. Probably not with Jalen Green in the same lineup, but 8.9 for Şengün's fine. Obviously, the headliners are Jalen Williams and KD, but there's a decent amount of other stuff to like too.
Yeah, I really like the Miles Turner call. I think if I'm going down there, he's definitely the call between him and Ayton. I love that he's not picking up any ownership whatsoever. And I think a lot of people are going to. I mean, okay, if like Miles Turner's out, everybody's like, okay, Siakam and whoever is behind Miles Turner to start, right? But if Mathurin's out, I don't think everybody's going to really see that it's not just benefiting wings; it's actually possibly benefiting Miles Turner as well. So that is a really good call out. I think also, while I really like Zubac and he has a really good projection, I think the Miles Turner thing is very interesting because you save $1,000 and you get a guy that's not owned, and you do have the blowout risk with Zubac, whereas I don't really think that's as much of an issue here with Miles Turner. So I do like that. Not really seeing anybody that we have to go get. Jared Allen remains a good price, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jalen Williams and everything down low. So he could be in a good spot here at 6.5K. Don't hate it. I mean, the Ayton is too cheap for his talent level, no doubt about it, and he's not going to be owned. So those two things are very nice. But whatever the hell that was the other day with him, that has scarred me beyond belief. I think if I was going to bet on a Blazer to bounce back, it would be Simons on this slate. But I don't really think either of those things are super necessary to do if we don't want to. All right, let's wrap it up with our flag plant of the day and our general strategy.
I guess I'll flag plant the good Jalen Williams, the one who's not 3.3K. Not going to be owned enough for the role, I think. 8K flat's a really good price tag. The game environment should be good. I think he's the one I'm going to kind of build around on this slate.
Well, I can't say your flag plant because that was definitely one of mine, but luckily I have a second one. First, so I will say Jalen Williams is a core play for me. He looks awesome. He's the main reason why I do not have any fear of fading KD on this slate. You certainly can play them together if you want to. It just makes sense to drop down and play him. But my flag plant is going to be Jalen Green once again. Just keep doing it until it doesn't work. Am I right? He's still not expensive enough for the player he's been. The usage is crazy. The production is crazy. He is on fire. He's only 7.4K, projects really, really well for the slate. But more than that, I love that Shade on Sharp is coming in super chalky, and I'll just go pay up 1.2K more. Hope that Sharp does not hit, and that Jalen Green, for some reason, once again, no ownership, does. All right, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and come join us in the Discord, and let's win some cash. Thanks for watching, and good luck.